nearly 40% of Gen Z globally are turning back to traditional travel advisors rather than purely digital platforms. So I think we all, we love digital and we love, the benefits of AI, but I think we're also craving human interaction again when we're traveling or when we're planning travel. You can get overwhelmed with all the information and all the tabs open and all your spreadsheets. And actually, sometimes it's just nice to talk to someone and say, what do you think?
I'm Carla Buzasi, CEO of WGSN, and your host of Lives of Tomorrow, the podcast where we explore how shifts in society, ethics, and the economy are shaping all our futures. Now, today we're discussing the future of travel and how macro trends like urban transformation, creative migration are redefining the way we experience the world. The team at WGSN have undertaken a significant piece of research into the 2026 travel landscape, looking at how wellness, community, and cultural participation are driving new patterns in consumer behaviour, and find out what this means for brands. So, to discuss the shifts and strategies impacting the future of travel, I'm joined by Joanna McGinn, Senior Strategist at City by City WGSN. Joanna, welcome to Lives of Tomorrow. This is your first time on the podcast, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
thank you. I'm really honoured to be here. Thank you.
So you know the drill. We're going to start by having you introduce yourself to the listeners.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Jo, and as you said, I'm Senior Strategist at City by City. So I head up a global team of contributors, and we update city guides across the world. So not your average city guide, I'd say. It's more about that insider retail, cultural hotspots, little cafes and creative corners of a city that can inspire our readers. The other thing we do is more strategic pieces. So we're looking at up and coming cities that might be interesting for brands to pop up in or to visit for inspiration. So I love my job. I get to travel every day from my desk. So it's amazing. I love it.
I am so passionate about travel. If I'm not working, then I'm probably researching where I'm going on my next trip and then hopefully on those trips.
Me too.
So this is a podcast that is very dear to my heart, but we're going to go into the more kind of strategic view of it rather than just where I want to go on holiday next time. So we know that travel, especially today, is really intertwined with all sorts of other movements. So wellness, community, all of those kind of things. So what are your predictions at the moment as to how that will evolve in the next months and years to come?
We're moving from people just wanting that kind of passive escape to something much more transformational. So one of the concepts that we're looking at, obviously, at WGSN is living wonder. So that's one of our consumer emotions for 2029, as you know. People are looking for ways to feel alive. You know, they're kind of sick of being on their screens, and they're looking for that kind of feeling of awe and wonder and curiosity and a sense of discovery. And I think sometimes this is about making a little bit of friction in their journey or in their experience. There's a study that has been done where it shows 85% of travellers are looking for a destination that really challenges them. So adding, that sense of challenge to make the discovery feel even sweeter, I think is growing amongst travellers. Gen Z also are more willing to forgo their accommodation budget in order to experience something that is really meaningful for them. So I think it's happening across ages and demographics of travel. There's one nice example actually in Sardinia, which is it's called Blue Zone retreats, and you can go and stay in a small village in Sardinia. You live with a family, you learn to cook with that family, and you eat with them. And it's really about connecting deeply with local people, but also about cultural preservation, because these villages aren't on the tourist trail. They're not the big resorts. They might not be thriving as much as those beach destinations. So I think that's a nice example of that kind of community, connection, discovery coming through in travel. The other thing is wellness, like you mentioned. So again, that's becoming more about transformation. So instead of just, going to a spa and pampering yourself, it's about doing a longevity retreat, or learning about cellular health. People really want to come back from a destination feeling like they've been transformed, like they've got a new way of living. And I think that's something that we're seeing moving forward. There's also the trend for kind of really switching off and, getting rid of all the tech, going to a dead zone where there's no signal, but also about refocusing. So we're seeing a global rise of listening bars across the world. And there's one in Mexico City where they don't allow phones, they don't allow talking, no alcohol. It's all about focusing on the music. You can cozy up under a blanket, and it's about getting away from that kind of noise of everyday life. And I think brands can tap into this. They can create a sense of awe and wonder, popping up in unexpected places, or they can also, I think, create those pause spaces. So places where it's not all about big high tech infrastructure in your store. There's one really nice example from Canadian brand Architects, who've popped up in a Japanese mountain resort, and they've got this store that's you can take part in workshops and product trials, but also it's got this cozy vinyl listening bar area in the corner. So it's really about just as much about transaction as decompression and switching off.
So there are lots of cities around the world that are currently being revitalized because they've got influx of artists coming into them, and you've got that creative migration, which we made a nod to at the top of this podcast. What kind of new hospitality concepts, maybe even retail concepts, do you think brands can start testing to capture, I guess, the loyalty of these very influential but quite transient communities?
Brands can tap into those concepts that move around. Nomadic retail, fourth spaces are becoming really important. I know you've talked about that before on a podcast, but I think it's important for travel as well. People are maybe starting a community online around an artist or around a musician, and then making a pilgrimage to go and see that musician or see that piece of art. And that means for brands, they might be looking at, not the biggest cities. It might be a small village. There's an example in Bulgaria, Bankso, which is a ski resort. And that was once just a winter destination for skiing. And now it's become an all year round destination for digital nomads. And it's got its own nomad festival they do once a year there. So I think it's about looking away from those bigger cities as well. And also looking to see how they can connect with the true creatives who are looking maybe to work somewhere that's not too expensive. If they're testing a hospitality space, they could maybe create some studio spaces for artists to work in as well. There's a really nice example in the US, bunkhouse hotels. They have really integrated themselves into the creative community and wherever they pop up. So they do a lot of festivals. They've got dog meetups and run clubs, but they've also really made an effort to connect with the local community. So they do a lot of activations around trying to reduce food insecurity, for example. So it's a two-way thing there. They're not just coming in and landing and saying, oh, we're here for all the creatives. They're also trying to make connections with their neighborhood as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the cadence of travel. So we're recording this in the UK summer, and that was specifically because I had holidays on my mind and I thought it would be lovely to talk about the future of travel. But when people travel is fundamentally changing. A lot of that's to do with the weather, but there are other reasons as well. So what's your forecast around this? What should hospitality and, again, retail brands be aware of as this fundamental shift takes place?
We've got all these wildfires at the moment in Europe and Canada, and it's people don't want to travel so much if they don't have to in those high seasons. So I think the shoulder season obviously is becoming more important. Destinations like Scandinavia, Eastern Europe is seeing a growth of 7% a year for the next 5 years in terms of its tourist trade. So those newer destinations, as well as the cadence, are important. And also the other shift is more cadence of day and night. So as you know, we've been looking at nocturnal living for a long time, and that's coming through in travel as well. It's been called noctourism, I think. So people are having those experiences that they might normally be kind of queuing up to the Acropolis in the daytime in the heat of the sun. But could they do that at night? Could that be much more of a special experience? And I think if brands can facilitate those kind of nighttime experiences, um, that's a really nice way of tapping into this kind of new cadence of travel. The other thing is stargazing is a big there's a big boom in that kind of dark sky tourism. And again, like we like to talk I talked about at the beginning, it's about cultivating a sense of awe, wonder. This time it's kind of cosmic awe, and it's taking people out of their normal everyday and giving them something that feels really, really awe-inspiring.
I love that. I mean, we've talked about glimmers, but I'm very happy to be moving on to awe now.
Yes,
it feels right.
absolutely.
The time is right.
Absolutely.
So if we don't think of travel as just the destination and the place that we have to get to, how can brands think about evolving from, I guess, the kind of simple transactional touch points to become kind of more integrated into how we think about travel and the entire experience of it?
Yeah, I think brands have a real opportunity here. As the world becomes more digitalized, everything's optimized. I think people are starting to look towards, like I mentioned before, that friction in their journey. So going back to train travel, for example, slow journeys where you might stop off and do a bit of a detour on the route. So I think for brands, that's really exciting because they can be part of that journey. They can facilitate a journey, or they can maybe collaborate with some of those innovators in the rail industry. There's a really nice example. Have you seen the British Pullman train?
I have seen a lot of photographs on Instagram of the British Pullman, and I would very much like to be invited on that at some stage.
It's so gorgeous. I know. There's this beautiful carriage they've done called Celia, which is designed by Baz Luhrmann and Catherine Martin, who's the costume designer, and it is so opulent. It's all 1930s glam, and a lot of brands have been doing events there and partnering with the carriage and just kind of creating these moments there, which I think's almost like a blueprint for other brands to look at and think, how can we think about integrating ourselves in that journey rather than just doing a pop-up at a destination?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who spends a lot of time on a train going back and forth to London, and it is inevitably delayed, and at the moment they are either boiling hot or freezing cold.
Oh, I know.
Because either the air conditioning works and someone's got it on, like, ratcheted up. I mean, just the word train kind of brings me out in hives.
Yeah.
But then you see these beautiful pictures and I'm like, oh, I'd be very happy to spend hours on that
yeah. Train. I think when we say friction, it's friction to a certain degree.
It's the friction I can cope with. Okay, we're at the quick fire question part of the podcast. So get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer recommendations from secret Instagram pages or word of mouth?
Well, I love Instagram, and I do think it throws up some real gems, but it can also be really, really disappointing when something's like oversaturated. So I would say definitely word of mouth. I love our work chat, the travel recommendations. That's where I think you find those real hidden gems. When you talk to somebody that is on your wavelength, I think you can get some great spots from that.
When was the last time you felt genuinely challenged professionally?
I think it's got to be AI. I think really harnessing the power of AI has been a challenge, but also exciting, but also managing the threat of AI as well, especially when we're talking about travel and how we report on travel.
Excellent. Okay. What's the song you currently have on repeat?
I've got to say Harry Styles, because I went to his concert in London with my daughter, and ever since I've had As It Was on repeat in my head.
Oh, really?
And all his outfits, because he looked amazing.
Wow. Did he?
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I didn't go, but have seen many, many, many pictures on Instagram. What's the book that you are currently recommending to everyone?
Well, have you seen The Odyssey yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I
No.
definitely am going to need to go and see it.
So I love a bit of Greek mythology, and I went to see it last weekend. It was brilliant. But I'd recommend the books by Madeline Miller, who writes about, well, she reinterprets those myths from a female perspective. So I think there's a really nice
Ooh,
context to it if you're going on, especially if you're going
okay.
on holiday to Greece.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm like, well, I'm a week back from Greece, but
Oh,
I'm
well,
still,
still worth reading.
I
Still worth reading.
the Ocado order that will be arriving this evening is full of halloumi and all the ingredients to make tzatziki. I've definitely started trying to keep some of that kind of Greek vibe
Definitely.
with me. What was the last thing you ticked off your bucket list?
Apart from Harry Styles, going to Sri Lanka and going on a train journey actually there. So talking about friction in travel, it was very, very slow, but that meant we could hang out of the windows and the doors and kind of almost touch the jungle going past. So that was amazing.
Sri Lanka is beautiful. My mum was
Mm.
born in Sri Lanka.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh,
we've been
wow.
back quite a few times in a sort of, pilgrimage to where she spent her
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get back into the topic at hand.
Hmm.
Now, you are the person who runs City by City, so you know your cities. What destinations are you predicting at the moment that are emerging as hubs for, I mean, with City by City, we're talking very much people who work in creative industries,
Hmm.
but which are the cities to watch out for?
Well, we're currently researching our Cities to Watch 2027 report. So we've got lots of data that we're going through, and we're looking at events and, which cities are thriving in terms of sustainability and creativity, and also digital, those ones that are investing in the digital infrastructure. But at the moment, I think I'm looking at Sofia in Bulgaria as a really interesting city to watch, mainly because it's got the combination of all those things. So it's not too expensive. The cost of living is good. They are really focusing on creativity. They've just hosted the European Design Festival. They've got this amazing power plant that they refurbished and created a cultural centre, and that's become a real hub for exhibitions. But also, interestingly, their retail and food and drink is mostly independently run. So you, like we were saying before, you don't just go and get the same. It's not about chains, and it's much more about individuality. And they're encouraging people to go and set up small businesses. They've got these kind of digital hubs where people can collaborate. So I think that's a really interesting place in Europe. In terms of APAC, we're looking at Shillong, which is a city in India. So that's set in the mountains. So it's a nice destination for a mix of nature and creativity, culture, but also digital tech kind of side of things. So it's a little bit cooler than those really hot cities in India. So it's a bit of an escape from that. They also have a matriarchal tradition there. So it's very community focused. It's very safe for female travelers to visit. And they have these amazing raves in pine forests and lots of music going on. But also the government there is investing. So they have they're supporting local entrepreneurs with these digital centres. So it's a balance of being able to be connected, but also feeling that real energy and also the energy of nature.
Well, you heard it here first for everyone who isn't a WGSN subscriber, who hasn't got their hands on all that data so far. Let's maybe talk about regenerative travel next.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the word sustainability a moment ago. Can you share some examples of maybe, I don't know, hospitality concepts or hotels that are really genuinely giving back to nature rather than just, putting a little sign up saying don't put your towels on the floor?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is harder to find those, like you said, the real genuine ones where they're aiming to leave it better than they found it, which is a tough one. But I think rewilding is a concept that is happening all over the globe. And I think that's interesting. but also sea wilding or rewilding under the water is nice because there, obviously coral regeneration is really important. So Iberostar, Spanish hotel chain, have opened up a coral lab on their beach in the Dominican Republic. And they're really encouraging families and children to come and take part in growing all these different types of coral and really trying to revive the coral that's been damaged there. So I think looking under the sea is a nice one. In terms of hotel chains, Nomad Hotels, I don't know if you know them, but
I do. I went to Holbox last year and I didn't stay in Nomad, but I went and ate there. So
Oh, right.
yes, I
So
know
you saw
Nomad.
it.
Yes, I did.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if it was that resort, but they built the rooms on stilts. I don't know if you saw that, but it's really trying
Yeah.
to kind of
So the
not
one,
damage nature when
the,
they're
yeah,
doing the
which is
building.
amazing. The one that I saw in Holbox, so they've got one in Tulum. They've got one in Ibiza now. I haven't seen
Yeah.
the Ibiza one, but the one I saw in Holbox, it was tented. So some of the rooms were tented, and then the others were kind of in these treehouse sort of. It was
Yeah.
treehouse style, but yes, built on stilts. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And so they've made a real effort to leave the wildlife and the root system intact, even though they've put that development in. And I think they work with regenerative farmers to source their food. And like you said, the one in Ibiza is just opening, I think, just this month. And that's, again, that same concept of trying to really put nature first and the local community when they open up somewhere new.
Yeah. So what about some other big themes? What are the other trends that you're forecasting for the future of travel?
Well, one of the other themes that we're looking at for 2029 is inner enoughness. And that's definitely happening in travel, I think. So it's a rejection of the constant kind of striving, that it's more of an anti-optimization culture. So we're seeing this in travel as a little bit of hedonism, I think, is coming back. So real fun, human connection, and also a little bit of kind of humor coming back into experiences. There's a nice theme of hybrid hotel clubs that are opening up. So there's a few in Paris that have actually opened. One's called the Bus Palladium, which was an old nightclub that closed, but they've reopened it. But this time it's not just a club, it's also a hotel. So you can stay there, but then at night you can go into the basement and there's a disco going on, which I think sounds amazing.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, you mentioned when we were doing the quickfire questions, AI.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to the examples of how AI and tech are having an impact on travel?
When digital can be really beneficial to a travel experience is when it's combined with nature. So I've just been to the Venice Biennale, and one of the experiences there was you went into a garden and you're given a headphone set which tracked you via GPS. So as you moved around the garden, there was a soundtrack that you were listening to, there was poetry. And as you moved around the garden, the soundtrack would move with you. And it was really, really powerful. And it was very emotional, actually, the experience. But it wouldn't have been possible without tech. So I think that's a nice example where you might be kind of being in nature and then kind of having that enhanced by tech is a really nice way of looking at tech. The other way that I think tech's coming through is kind of creating those moments of discovery and serendipity. So there's one fun app called Moogle Gaps, which is in Australia. And they've created this anti-navigation app. So instead of taking you the most direct route, they take you on a little journey across little discoveries and hidden gems and bars and little restaurants and things. So it's all almost about getting lost, the joy of getting lost. And I think that's quite a nice use of tech.
That's really
in travel.
Cool. What's it called? Moogle
Gaps.
Moogle Gaps. Okay. Moogle Gaps. All right. I am definitely going to download. That's fab. I love that.
Yeah. So I think as AI scales, we see consumers starting to reject, overuse of digital. There's one stat that I read from Skyscanner. Nearly 40% of Gen Z globally are turning back to traditional travel advisors rather than purely digital platforms. So I think we all, we love digital, and we love, the benefits of AI, but I think we're also craving that human interaction again when we're traveling or when we're planning travel. You can get overwhelmed with all the information and all the tabs open and all your spreadsheets, and actually sometimes it's just nice to talk to someone and say, what do you think?
Okay, so final question. Are you, with everything we've talked about today, more anxious or hopeful about the future of travel?
I think I'm cautiously hopeful. I think the experiences I've had recently makes me feel really optimistic. Like I said, in Ibiza and Venice, the locals there have a real pride in their community, in their environment, in their traditions. And I think they're really now putting that before short-termism and just a quick buck from tourism. And I think that gave me hope. I think that's the future, where nature, traditions and development can live side by side. And I think that's what the traveller wants too.
A big thank you to Joanna McGinn, Senior Strategist at City by City WGSN. As always, do check out our other podcast, Create Tomorrow, with my colleague Cassandra Napoli. But that's it from me. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. My name's Carla Buzasi. I'm the CEO of WGSN, and I'll see you next time.